EVO. Welcome back to the Ides of April. This is The Dagger in the Crown, the assassination of Francisco Pizarro, Part 2. This is Chapter 4, the City of Kings. Kings may well be handsomely decked with diamonds, but they are always the slaves of their people's opinions. Cervantes saw through the jewels to the unseen chains. A crown isn't simply a symbol of power. It's a burden of judgment, a mirror held constantly before the face, reflecting every doubt, every whisper, and every tremor of weakness. The world imagines kings as masters of destiny, but often they're prisoners of expectation, condemned to guard what they have taken with vigilance so consuming it feels like fear. And fear, once enthroned, governs more cruelly than any monarch. If conquest is a storm, empire is the uneasy calm that follows, a quiet so brittle it threatens to shatter at the slightest breath. After Atahualpa fell and Cusco bent beneath the weight of Spanish law, Francisco Pizarro turned his gaze toward creation rather than destruction. From salt-washed coast to mountain shadow, he sought to build something lasting, not merely victory, but legitimacy. Thus rose Lima, the city of kings, carved into the coastal plain like an oath made in stone, that the conqueror from Extremadura would not vanish back into obscurity, that his dominion would not evaporate like morning mist over the Andes. He would not be a footnote in another man's chronicle. He would be the author. Yet cities born from ambition are never merely monuments. They're confessions of longing, of insecurity, of a restless soul terrified that fortune might yet slip away. In the streets of Lima, beneath the sun-baked adobe and growing plazas, the seeds of Pizarro's undoing were quietly taking root. Lima didn't rise by accident. It rose from calculation. That the mountains, with their rebellious heartbeats and Inca spirits restless in stone, could never truly be subdued by foreign hands. To rule Peru, you have to tether the empire not to the heights, but to the sea. So Pizarro stood upon an empty plain and imagined a future. A cathedral pointed toward heaven, a governor's palace drawn from memories of Castile, markets swelling with silver and silk, and streets arranged like the geometry of certainty. Lines not of chaos, but of order. He named it La Ciudad de los Reyes, a christening heavy with prophecy. But the irony lingered like incense. In building a city for kings, he crowned only one. And kings, like Cervantes warned, are never free from the eyes of those who watch them. Power seldom delivers peace. Instead, it grants clarity, the disquieting realization that every ally has a limit, every oath an expiration, and every shared victory a hidden ledger of debts and grievances. In Lima, Pizarro surrounded himself with ceremony, with symbols of permanence, with the trappings of governance. But in quiet hours, when torches guttered and the Pacific wind crept through the palace windows, he must have felt the hollowness beneath it all. The city bore his name in every stone, but its foundations trembled with the footsteps of men who remembered a time before he stood above them. Hernando plodded and lectured, convinced that discipline could outshout destiny. Gonzalo rode like a knight from legend, proud and bright as a blade freshly forged, and young Juan, eager for glory, chased shadows of valor across valleys still haunted by the Inca dead. But outside the palace walls, in taverns thick with ambition and envy, other voices murmured. Voices of captains who felt slighted, soldiers who remembered Almagro's warmth and loyalty, men who had given their youth to conquest only to find themselves rewarded with orders, not with honor. A king may very well command an army, but he can't command memory. And memory, sharper than steel, longer lived than cities, had begun to turn against him. Far from Lima's ordered plazas, in the chill breath of the Sierra, the allies of the fallen Almagro nursed their rage like embers ready to flare. They remembered a promise broken, a brother parted from glory, strangled by ambition disguised as justice. They whispered that Pizarro's greatness had been purchased not only with Inca blood, but with Spanish betrayal. Among them was Almagro the Younger, a youth forged from grief and expectation, carrying his father's wound like inheritance. He'd been raised not on lullabies, but on stories of loyalty betrayed and honor stolen. Where Pizarro sought legacy, the boy sought recompense, a settling of the cosmic scales. Men gathered to him not merely for revenge, but for recognition. The recognition that glory belonged not solely to the Pizarros, that Peru was too vast for one lineage to claim as its sovereign right. From mountain fortresses and hidden courtyards, they watched Lima grow fat and golden, and they sharpened their resolve as one might sharpen steel on stone. For every city, no matter how grand, casts a shadow, and in that shadow, rebellion breathes. In his palace, Francisco Pizarro held court, aged yet unbowed, weary yet unwilling to yield even a fraction of his authority. He received letters from Spain that praised and admonished in equal measure, envoys from the church offering benedictions edged with scrutiny, and endless supplicants seeking favors, titles, privilege. Yet all the while, a truth crept closer, quiet as dusk. A man who claims a world must guard it not only against enemies, but against the mirrors held up by those who once called him brother. Pizarro may have believed in some deep and vulnerable corner of himself that founding a city would give shape to his legitimacy, that walls and plazas and prayers would form a fortress around him. But walls can't keep out memory. Cathedrals cannot hush the murmur of grievance. And prayer does little against the ambitions of men who believe they've been wronged. He built Lima to secure his place in eternity. Instead, he built the stage upon which fate would confront him. Because the past doesn't remain in its grave simply because we build monuments on top of it. It rises, it returns, it knocks at palace doors dressed as justice. Cervantes told us that kings are slaves to opinion, so too are conquerors. The City of Kings was meant to be Francisco Pizarro's triumph, his answer to a lifetime of scarcity and insignificance. Yet the more magnificent the city grew, the more starkly it revealed the vulnerability of the man who birthed it. Maybe he sensed in nights when candles guttered low and the surf whispered against the distant shore that the gold he sought had turned from prize to curse. That the brothers he once marched beside now measured his worth not by victory, but by trust withheld. That the young heir Almagro sharpened his purpose in the dark like a blade, learning its victim's heartbeat. Empires don't fall in thunder. They erode in whispers. And Lima, shining, proud, holy in her ambition, had become a beautiful cage. Soon the bars would close, not by foreign hand, but by familiar ones. Chapter 5. Death in the Palace of Conquest. All great adventures begin with a single step, but the wise man takes care to see where it leads. Cervantes, with his gentle irony, reminds us that ambition doesn't always know its destination at the outset. Men imagine glory waiting at the end of their march, Few imagine the quiet corridor, the flicker of torchlight, the hush before a door opens and fate steps across the threshold, wearing the face of someone once called brother. The wise man watches where his ambition carries him, but wisdom rarely travels with conquest. And steps taken in triumph often lead, unnoticed, to the place where they will end. The evening that Francisco Pizarro died was not marked by celestial omens or thunderous signs from heaven. It came as most reckonings do, quietly, without proclamation, without the dignity of warning. A warm night settling over Lima, the Pacific breathing against the shore like some drowsy god, shadows stretching long across the plazas of a city still young enough to glimmer with promise. Inside his palace, a home of adobe walls and timber beams that bore the confident scent of wet clay and pine, lit by candles that trembled in the drafts like anxious hearts. The man who had once commanded the fates of emperors sat surrounded not by armies or acclaim, but by memory and the uneasy hush of corridors too wide and too silent. He had built the City of Kings to enshrine his triumph, but on this night it felt instead like a tomb preparing itself. There had been murmurs, always murmurs. A city breathes through rumor the way men breathe through lungs. Whispers of Almagristas gathering in the hills, murmurs of discontent among officers who had once toasted victory beside him. The soft suggestion that the name Pizarro, once synonymous with destiny, was beginning to taste like arrogance in the mouths of those who spoke it. Pizarro was no fool. He heard them. He understood the mathematics of resentment far better than he ever understood the language of forgiveness. But power has a peculiar narcotic effect. It convinces the heart that danger is a distant thing, a rumor that belongs to lesser men. And maybe he believed, if only out of habit, that the world would yield to him as it always had. Even gods in their statues rarely notice the hammer until they feel the crack. They came through the streets cloaked in purpose, moving among torchlit alleys and moonstruck plazas like wraiths given weight by hatred. Sons of the fallen Almagro, veterans once loyal, now hardened into vengeance. Young blades eager to carve their names into the stone of history. And at their center, Almagro the Younger, not yet tempered by age or softened by doubt, a youth raised on grief, baptized in injustice, convinced that he carried his father's last breath like a torch meant to ignite the world. In their eyes burned not the cold logic of war, but the fevered righteousness of men who believe fate had deputized them. There is no blade so sharp as a grievance sanctified. They approached the palace not as assassins, but as judges. And in their hands, justice wore steel. Inside, Francisco Pizarro, conquistador, governor, founder of Lima, dined with a few companions, the evening hum broken only by the low cadence of conversation and the occasional clink of goblets against silver plate. He was older now. The violence of youth had settled into the stillness of age. But still, in the posture of his shoulders and the set of his jaw, there lingered that iron certainty, as though he believed he could outstare destiny if only he could meet its gaze. Then a sound. A hurried footfall, the distant shout of alarm. The rhythm of the night shifted, subtle but unmistakable, like the tightening of a drumhead before battle. Torches flared in the courtyard. A servant's voice cracked with fear. Steel scraped from scabbards. Not in the mountains, not in the wilderness, but in the heart of the city he had willed into existence. For the first time in many, many years, Francisco Pizarro felt the past reach for him. Not the past of Inca kings and dying empires, but the past of brothers betrayed and ambitions wounded. The conspirators burst into the palace with the fury of a storm, long coiled and finally unleashed. Swords flashed in candlelight. Boots crushed tiles slick with spilled wine and terror. Voices clamored, half battle cry, half curse. The cry not of soldiers, but of ghosts demanding their due. Pizarro rose. Whatever else history may deny him, it cannot deny him this. He did not cower. He moved like a man who had lived his life by iron principle, that the world bends not to fear, but to force of will. He drew his sword. His companions did the same. For a brief and furious instant, the room became a furnace. Flashing blades, overturned table, the sharp scent of wax burning down to wick, the cry of a wounded man echoing like a prayer swallowed by stone. Pizarro fought not with desperation, but with the dignity of a man who has known violence as he knows breath, who understands that death is not the enemy, only indignity is. He crossed blades with fate and refused to kneel. But fate does not bow to courage, and justice, even warped by personal grief, arrives regardless of valor. A blade found its mark, then another, and another, punctuating the history he had authored with a final, brutal punctuation. He staggered, blood dark on the floor, staining the palace he had built as though empire itself were bleeding through him. Legend claims that as his life drained, Francisco Pizarro dipped trembling fingers into his own blood and traced upon the wall the sign of the cross. Not as a plea, but as a declaration. The man who had toppled empires, had executed kings, raised cathedrals, and founded cities, would not surrender his soul without making his mark, even in death. A final act, not of repentance, but of identity. I am who I am. I have done what I have done, and the world will remember me. The candlelight dimmed for him, and the room, once filled with gold's promise, held only silence and the lingering scent of violence. Outside, Lima breathed on, unaware that its maker had fallen. Cities, like gods, don't notice the death of their creators until long after the embers cool. In the end, Francisco Pizarro didn't die on a battlefield, surrounded by banners and trumpet song. He died in a room of his own making, beneath a ceiling that he had envisioned, slain not by emperors or warriors, but by men who once might have toasted his name in triumph. This is how history often settles its accounts, not in grand finales, but in intimate reckonings. A whisper grown into a blade, a brotherhood curdled into revenge, a life built on ascent, ending in the quiet gravity of a fall made inevitable not by enemies, but by the weight of the crown he forged for himself. Cervantes warned that steps taken without foresight lead to strange destinations. And here, on a tiled floor in a palace by the sea, lay the proof. The man who captured suns found his end by candlelight. The conqueror of an empire conquered only by his own legacy. The founder of Lima, undone by the brotherhood that once shared his hunger. They say death removes pain, but history remembers. And memory, once carved in blood, doesn't fade. It becomes scripture.
Our dogs are family, and they deserve food that treats them that way. That's why Ollie makes meals with fresh, human-grade ingredients you can actually recognize. Chicken, beef, carrots, blueberries, spinach, no fillers, no byproducts, just real nutrition slow-cooked to keep your pup healthy and energized. Shinier coats, better digestion, more energy, and with 5 protein-packed flavors like beef with sweet potatoes or turkey with blueberries, your dog may be eating better than you. Every plan is customized to your dog's age, breed, and activity level, and delivered right to your door in perfectly portioned, easy-to-serve packs. Simple, fresh, and made just for them. Now here's how you can try it. Your dog's well-being starts with their food, and that's why Ollie delivers fresh, human-grade food that your dog will love. Head to ollie.com/IDES. Tell them all about your dog and use code IDES to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/IDES and enter code IDES to get 60% off your first box. Most people can't name every financial account they have or what any of them are really worth. A 401k here, an old brokerage there, a few credit cards, maybe a forgotten savings account. It's a kind of financial fog, and it's costing people money. Monarch cuts through that fog. It's an all-in-one personal finance platform that brings your entire financial life together, cleanly, clearly, and instantly on your laptop or your phone. Link your accounts in minutes, see where your money's actually going, and take control of it. Monarch does the heavy lifting. Smart categorization, powerful visuals, and planning tools trusted by professionals. It's been named Best Budgeting App of 2025 by the Wall Street Journal, Forbes' Best App for Couples, and listed among CNBC's top fintech companies in the world. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code IDES at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code IDES.
Chapter 6. What Remains of Empire. The truth may be stretched thin, but it does not break, and it always surfaces above lies, as oil floats on water. Cervantes gives truth the patience of eternity, a quiet confidence that even the grandest illusions eventually collapse under their own impossible weight. Conquerors write the first draft of history, but time is the editor, and time doesn't flatter. What ambition celebrates, consequence will revise, and the truth, waiting beneath the myths men build to defend themselves, rises at last, uninvited, unstoppable, and undeniable. When the blade leaves its mark and the blood dries, the world, contrary to our illusions, doesn't stop. It exhales, it shrugs, and it moves forward. Cities wake up, children cry for bread, the sun rises because it's always risen, and human triumph and tragedy alike dissolve beneath its light. Francisco Pizarro was carried to consecrated ground, mourned by some, whispered about by many, and privately judged by all who had walked in his shadow. Lima, the city he carved from coastline and dreams, didn't crumble without him. Its streets filled with merchants and monks, soldiers and supplicants, life clinging stubbornly to stone. But an empire doesn't end in one breath. It unravels, thread by thread, vow by broken vow, until what was once certainty becomes myth, and myth becomes warning. Almagro the Younger seized power in the shock that followed, a throne gained in fury rather than governance. Yet vengeance is a poor architect. Where Pizarro had shaped order from hunger, the air of grievance ruled like a flame, bright, fierce, consuming everything it touched, including itself. The Spanish crown, distant, yet always hungry for order and tribute, frowned upon chaos in its gilded colony. Troops marched, papers arrived bearing royal seals like thunderclaps. In the name of the king, and in the silent service of stability, Almagro's son was captured, tried, and executed. Not strangled in a courtyard, but beheaded, as though Spain wished to remind every ambitious soul that rebellion, even dressed as justice, ends cold and headless beneath the law. Thus the cycle closed, blood for blood, brother for brother, a symmetry as ancient as Cain and Abel, played now upon the stage of a continent stolen from its gods. Hernando Pizarro returned to Spain, where accusation and rumor awaited him like wolves at dusk. He would spend years in prison, judged not only for his deeds, but for the spectral guilt of ambition itself. Gonzalo, still wild and brilliant, raged against the crown, briefly rising as the last Pizarro standard-bearer before falling beneath blades that no longer needed to whisper their names. And so the House of Pizarro ended as it began, not in triumph, but in hunger. Each brother devoured by the very appetite that first bound them. They sought a kingdom, they found it, and then found that kingdoms don't love their makers. They merely use them and then discard them like old scaffolding once the palace stands on its own. In the end, the Pizarros did not die heroes or villains or martyrs. They died as men who mistook conquest for permanence. Far from Lima's plazas and Catholic bells, in the heights where air thins and stone holds memory like ancient bone, the Inca world breathed on. Not unbroken. No, history had carved it deeply, but undefeated in spirit. Native voices whispered prayers older than Spain. Terraces clung to mountainsides like fingerprints. The sun rose still, indifferent to crosses and crowns alike. Cultures don't vanish when empires claim victory. They recede, they coil, and they wait. The Andes kept their dead. They kept their names. They kept their gods beneath the soil, patient, watchful, eternal, where men are not. And when visitors walk the ruins centuries later, fingers tracing stones so precisely cut they defy imagination, they don't ask, where did the conquistadors pray? No, they ask, who built this? Who worshipped here? History forgets its conquerors faster than its creators. Pizarro's body rests beneath a church in Lima, beneath marble and memory. Yet his presence does not haunt those streets as much as the whispered language of the Quechua vendors, the carved faces of Andean textiles, the music that rises in plazas untouched by Spanish architecture. The conqueror lingers only in plaques, and plaques can lie. The people remain, their breath, their earth, their sky. Time stretched the truth thin, yes, but it didn't break, because it never does. Pizarro sought immortality and carved his name into the spine of a continent. Yet immortality, when granted, is often not the flavor a man imagines. For what remains of empire? Stones that outlast kings, songs that outlive swords, a caution whispered by mountains, that power, taken in hunger, leaves bones behind. In history, like the Andes, remembers its scars. Legacy is not the statue raised in the plaza. It's the question asked quietly centuries later. Was it worth it? Francisco Pizarro believed destiny favored the bold. And maybe it does, for a season. But seasons end, and when winter comes for conquerors, it comes without remorse. Cervantes promised that truth rises like oil upon water. And here, at the end of our journey, the truth glimmers plain. Empires are built by men, but they are judged by time. And time owes loyalty to no conqueror, only to our memory. So let's leave Pizarro not in triumph, not in infamy, but in understanding. A man flawed and fierce who climbed to the heavens by stepping on the backs of gods, only to realize too late that the summit is never sanctuary. It's just the highest place from which to fall. In the long dawn of history, gold dulls, cities erode, names fade like smoke into a cloud. But the earth remains, the people endure, and the sun, the same sun once worshipped by emperors and gods, chained and freed, lost and reborn, rises still. This has been the Ides of April, the Dagger in the Crown, the Assassination of Francisco Pizarro, an EVO creative historical miniseries. If this story moved you, if these echoes of ambition and betrayal and legacy linger with you, Follow, rate, and share the show. Your support brings the next series to life. Explore the EVO slate of narrative storytelling: The Devil Within, Criminal Mischief, Taboo Treasures, The Devil's Ledger, and of course, The Ides of April. For more, visit evocreative.com and follow us on Instagram at evocreative, at The Devil Within Pod, at The Ides of April Pod, and at taboo_treasures. Or email us at info@evocreative.com. Share your thoughts and ideas for future content. Even legends require patrons, and our work, these voices, these hours by lamplight, these journeys into memory, is made possible by partners who believe in storytelling as deeply as you do. Empires rise and fall on how well their treasuries are managed. Fortunately, your kingdom is simpler. Monarch makes personal finance human, powerful, and beautifully clear. Take control of your realm. Go to monarch.com/IDES for 50% off your first year. Ollie Pet Nutrition. Even conquistadors would agree loyalty deserves to be well fed. With fresh, vet-crafted meals for your four-legged companions, Ollie keeps modern guardians and their loyal subjects thriving. Get 60% off your first box at ollie.com/IDES. Until next time, remember, history is never past, only patient, and the shadows of yesterday still move beneath our feet. We'll meet you in the next chapter.